I know I got a bad reputation, and it isn't just talk. If I could only give you everything, you know I haven't got.
Welcome back to the Noah Baumbach series. Today we travel all the way back to 1995 to discuss Noah Baumbach's first feature film, Kicking and Screaming. The story focuses on a group of friends during the first year after graduating college when everyone sort of feels like they're floating aimlessly with no direction or purpose. And for the most part, the plot reflects that. But the thread that holds it all together is the A-plot, which is, of course, the story of Grover, who has just gone through a breakup. And through a series of flashbacks, we get to see the beginnings of that relationship, knowing exactly where it ends, which is where the movie begins. So it's a movie that I really love and has grown on me as I've watched it now a second time. Tyler, you could go ahead and just take us in whatever direction you want to go. What were your overall impressions when you first watched this movie?
Yeah, so I'll just begin with I was going into this movie kicking and screaming because I'm like, I don't really know if I actually want to sit down and watch a Noah Baumbach movie today. And this was a few days ago, but I'm like, you know what? I'm going to do this and, it's going to be good. And then I was pleasantly surprised by this film. It's incredibly relatable to where we are right now in our lives, which I think is always Noah Baumbach's strong suit. He does relatable very well for middle-class America, I would say. Because I would say I think we're all middle class here, middle to upper. I mean, we grew up in one of the wealthiest counties in all of California, so I think it's safe to say that. But it is highly relatable, and I just really enjoyed it. It's simple. There's kind of two stories going on at the same time. There's a flashback with Grover's college love, Jane, and then there's just sort of the post-college still hanging around your college town, which I have not done. I just want to put that out there. I moved far away from my college town, but it does make you reflect on your time in college overall. And I really enjoyed it. I was pleasantly surprised because also this is Noah Baumbach's first film, and similar to our Bong Joon-ho series, when I was going into Barking Dogs Never Bite, I was expecting some work needed to be done, and some work needed to be done here for Baumbach, but his writing is still really strong, and I think the strongest part about this, besides the relatability, is just kind of the camaraderie between the four friends in this film. And they kind of say it throughout, but it's you guys all talk weird and you all talk the same.
Yeah.
And that's also just really relatable. I feel like I had my own language with my folks up in college. And then, it doesn't sound exactly realistic, but I think for Noah Baumbach it was. And I think this is highly based on his life, what most of his pieces are. And overall, I just really enjoyed this film.
Yeah, I too went into this one kicking and screaming. I watched it last night after the 49ers lost, so I was just in a bad mood when I watched it, which was not good. But overall, I thought it was pretty solid. I agree, very relatable to where we are in our life right now. I think it was more humorous than funny to me, which is a tough thing to try to explain. But if you know, you know. But overall, yeah, wasn't perfect, but I did enjoy it. Some things can be cleaned up. I thought the dialogue at times was a little, I don't know if clunky was the right word, but didn't feel quote unquote realistic to say. Kind of felt like dialogue you see in a play sometimes, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But overall, enjoyed it. Solid stuff.
Yeah, I think I mentioned this last time, but I've already watched all of Noah Baumbach's movies. I did a Baumbach-a-thon last summer, so this is now my second or third time watching several of these movies. Watching it the second time, the second half of the movie really hit hard. It really hit home in a different way for me this time. The first time I watched it, I was more connecting with all of the hijinks and the comedy and the silly stuff and the character relationships between the guys that are just now out of college. All of that stuff I was connecting to a lot more. This time when I was watching it though, once we get to the bar in the flashback sequences, actually no, even before that, once we get to the coffee shop in the flashback sequences between Grover and Jane, played by Josh Hamilton and Olivia Dabo, it really solidifies this emotional core to the movie. And every time they go back to the flashbacks from then on, I just found myself like I kept like clutching at my heart because I thought it was just so powerful. It's so beautiful and bittersweet because you know how it ends. She moves to Prague, as she says that she's going to in the very first scene, which is really fun and we're going to talk about. But everything about that, like that, I think that's where the movie is at its absolute best for me, is that emotional center between those two characters and that like real love, and watching the beginning of that love story take place, knowing how it ends, all of that. It's just like, really hit hard this time. Let's take it back though. Let's take it back to the beginning. I love in theater and I love in film opening scenes at dinner parties or social gatherings. It's just the best way to introduce characters because you could just put them in little pairs. You could just throw them around at the party. They have something to do. They're drinking. It's a great way to start off a movie. What were your overall impressions of the first scene? Tyler, you could take it.
Yeah, no, I really like that sequence. It's, again, like you were saying, it introduces every character well, and it also introduces you to the way everyone talks in this movie.
Yeah.
And I think it's just a good way to open it up. And again, everyone talks just, they kind of say what they're feeling. They say like, they have like that little game where they go like ding ding. Mm-hmm. And again, it's that thing like right before they go off, it's like they're still in college, but they're not really. I think someone in the opening says like, they officially are done with college and they're like unemployed right now, which is just like a funny feeling.
Yeah.
And again, I think it's almost like an epilogue at the beginning of a movie. It's like an epilogue as a prologue, if that makes sense. Because it's their epilogue for college, but it's actually the prologue of this movie, which is it's a very interesting way to frame this movie. And like, yeah, I'll just say that about the opening. I liked it. I thought the shot selection wasn't like crazy, but again, you can see like seeds of some really cool like marriage story stuff that we'll eventually talk about one day. But again, it's like planting the seeds. And again, for a good first scene for your first movie, it's solid. Baumbach's awesome.
Yeah, it was very fun stuff. I was watching, I'm like, I want to go to a dinner party or a cocktail hour or something like this. I want to go sit around a table. But I like that moment you were mentioning where he's talking about like how like he used to define himself as like whatever major he was, and now it's like he does nothing, so he doesn't know like how to define himself really. And just overall, I thought interesting scene. I thought it was a fun, good way to start the film.
We obviously have Grover and we have Jane. They're having their conversation. Then you have the character of Max, played by Chris Eichman, who is just sad and dour and constantly critical of everything. And I very much see myself in all of these characters, and in certain elements of myself I see in Chris Eichman, which is upsetting. But he's sitting with Carlos Jacat, who plays Otis, and they're just having a fun conversation. Then Skippy is out doing his thing. He eventually joins the table. We're introduced to Chet, played by Eric Stoltz, who is the reason that this movie got made, basically. Because Eric Stoltz was the biggest like star that they could have at that time, basically, and like it was a big reason that they were able to get financing, and so they kept just sort of shoving Eric Stoltz into scenes, which I think you could kind of tell. I totally know that guy who just stays in college, and he eventually explains like his whole rationale for that. But all of these characters, as they're being introduced in this first scene, are people that you know from college. And so we get a pretty good introduction to all of them. And then as soon as that finishes, we flash forward, and then the rest of the movie happens, and they are just in that floating period right after college, and they're all trying to figure out what they're going to do with their life. And that's a theme that we see a lot in Noah Baumbach movies. We saw that obviously in Frances Ha with the last movie that we talked about. Frances obviously a bit older, but still in that floating period, just trying to make it. And what I love about Noah Baumbach's movies is it's like, I don't know, I oscillate back and forth on this because it's dual parts romantic and completely unromantic about what it is to be an adult. There's a lot of nostalgia, which is very romantic, but there's also like a very plain straightness to it.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about the filmmaking though. We'll come back to some scenes and stuff. As we already mentioned, This is sort of an amateurish movie. There's not very much interesting cinematography going on. The lighting isn't exceptional. It does feel like someone's first film, but it feels like there's a steady hand behind it for the most part.
Yeah, I'll also say that it feels older than 1995 in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Again, the lighting is just missing, I think. But like the thing is, they didn't really know how to do lighting that well back then. But again, like you were saying, Dan, it gets the job done, and it definitely feels like a steady hand behind it. And it's not like there's like huge like mistakes in it. Like apparently I was watching this on Amazon, but apparently there's a scene where you can see one of the markers on the ground.
I didn't notice that.
And there's like little things like that throughout the movie. But again, it's not like horribly distracting.
Yeah, I don't know like shit about all this stuff, I'll be honest, so I'll be talking out my ass.
Hell yeah.
But it felt very just simple and basic to me, but I kind of felt like it fit with the whole vibe of this film, because there's not a lot going on here. It's not a really like overly complex story going on, not like just very basic and simple. And I just thought it fit the tone.
Yeah, and I think that that's a good segue into some stuff that I really did want to talk about, which is two things here. One, although the cinematography is a little bit basic, you know, it's basically just a few locations and characters talking in rooms. And so in that way, it really does feel like a young filmmaker's film, because that is so often what young filmmakers, especially in the 90s, were doing for their first feature film.
I think that's maybe why it kind of felt almost like a play sort of vibe to me, because it's just like people in a room, and there's a lot of plays that are kind of like that. Carry on. While
it's a simple film, it's a real celebration of independent filmmaking, and I think that you can feel that spirit throughout the whole movie. There's a joy not behind the camera work in the same way that like there's joy behind Boogie Nights. When you first watch Boogie Nights, you know, there's like, you can feel that in the camera. You don't feel it in the camera in this movie, but you feel the spirit of young filmmakers trying to make a film and succeeding in making a film. And I think that that's really admirable. And then the second piece of that, Jack, you said that it does sort of fit the tone, the filmmaking, to like what is happening. I think that what's interesting is the movie doesn't totally have a direction. It is a lot of skits and sketches and scenes, but that's reflective of where the characters are in their life. The characters have no direction and no straight line towards anything. So I think that the movie has to reflect that in a way.
Yeah, 100%. And it's also kind of funny though that there is like some sort of like forced structural thing in there that, I mean, I've written a feature for the first time before. Also, I have not gotten it produced. I will probably never get that one produced. I don't like it anymore. But I wrote it when I was like 19.
It's a Marvel movie.
It's a Marvel movie. It's called Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. No,
wait, Tyler, it got made. It got made. It's in theaters now.
Oh shit. Sorry. Yeah, they stole my idea. No. Again, it's a similar thing. But when you're writing for and again, I don't know what Noah Baumbach did, but when I was writing it, I was thinking of like, oh, this is how you write a movie, and you put like one structural thing in there. And then you just build around it. And I feel like Noah Baumbach really did that in this film, where like, again, most of the gags with all the bros or the cougars. That's what they call themselves. With the cougars. All of that stuff, again, doesn't feel that structured because it's them going on dates and stuff, them like hooking up with people. Anyways, what Noah Baumbach does put in this film that is like very structured and very good is the Grover and Jane stuff. He starts off with their ending, and then he just builds kind of back where they like meet. And he does it in like a very French New Wave way where like he just like pauses the frame for a second to just let you know like, hey, this is a flashback. And I was surprised to see that it actually ends on a flashback, because typically when you're doing structural things like that, you want to get the character in his last moments. You don't want to get a character from his past, because like, again, this whole movie and everything, every movie is about a character arc, whether that be all the characters, one character, a non-character arc, no matter what, like the main character changes at the end of the movie.
I think we should talk about, because I think it's the best thing about the movie is like the two last scenes. The two last scenes are just heartbreakingly, bittersweetly sad, and just, God, I was like, love. It's just unbelievable. Because, okay, so the last two scenes, Grover's at the airport with Chris Eichman and his way too young girlfriend. We'll talk about that.
Yes.
Yeah.
But they're all at the airport. They send off Otis, and Otis is going to Milwaukee for grad school finally after delaying it for the whole movie. He's got way too much carry-on stuff. I don't know what airport security stuff was like back in the 90s, but like I
Well,
wonder.
it was pre 9/11.
Yeah, I was about to say
it was pre 9/11, so yeah, he could just carry a television onto the airplane. But yeah, so they send him off, and they're all walking out, and then Grover sees the woman over at the desk, and he's like, I wish I hadn't seen that. And then they walk out. The camera stays on like nothing, and then he walks back through the frame, goes back in there, gives this unbelievably beautiful, poetic, romantic speech. And the woman is like, I'm sorry, there's just no flight. And he keeps going and he keeps going. And then she looks again and she's like, I think I could get you a ticket. And he's so happy. And he gives her the credit card. And then she's like, I'm just going to need to see your passport. And he realizes he doesn't have it.
Doesn't have his gosh darn passport.
He doesn't have his passport. I'll pause there because I just want to talk about that. This is maybe my favorite thing about Noah Baumbach. He takes these grand romantic gestures that you would see in old Hollywood movies and pulls them back a little bit. Happened in Frances Ha. Frances goes to France on a whim to have this amazing vacation, takes a sleeping pill, sleeps through most of the first day. Like, that's just so funny. And then the rest of the time that she's there, she doesn't have anything to do. She tries to go into that one bookshop and it's closed. And yeah, so it just wasn't the romantic vacation that she thought it was going to be. This moment, this big, grand romantic gesture where the boy would get on the plane and go to Prague and show up at her doorstep and kiss her, and then the movie ends. And it's over like that. And then she says, you can come back tomorrow. There will be another flight. But you know that the moment has passed and he's not going to come back tomorrow. It was all in that moment. And that's so heartbreaking.
But also maybe the smarter thing, you know, like maybe it's not like maybe, you know, just getting on a plane and going to Prague's not the greatest thing ever. But yeah, no, I really like.
What if it is? What if it is the greatest thing?
But
That's the
only in
thing.
that moment.
We'll never know.
His life would have been so different if he did get on that plane. And that's what's crazy,
Yeah.
is that life is full of those moments where like you are going to try and do something and it doesn't work out. And like, if you were able to do it, your life would go in a totally different direction. And then you meet someone else, blah, blah, blah. You know, it's just like, that's what I love about this ending is it's just like, that could have been the great big romantic love story that they tell to their kids, but instead it's not. And then they both are going to go their separate ways. And that's always just going to be in the back of both of their minds, probably, about this college relationship that they had. But then after that, what is absolutely heartbreaking, we get a little bit of sweet, because that is such a sad and emotional ending. And that's why I do love the ending on a flashback, like you were talking about, Tyler.
Yeah.
We then go to the final flashback. He runs back outside after they were just at the bar getting drunk, which was so awesome. And again, quick side note, a lot of the dialogue does feel sort of unnatural and like quippy and stuff with the guys, but all of the dialogue in the flashbacks, I think is unimpeachable, perfectly written.
100%. It kind of sometimes felt like they were written by someone else.
Yeah, a little bit. It felt like it.
Or if they were maybe like written at a later date and he like grew as a writer, then I don't know.
I think it also speaks to the fact that is, since that is the emotional core, like that is the movie, and like that's what he wrote the best. So I think that there's something there. Yeah. But so he goes back outside and we get another like really beautiful moment where he, you know, they're walking and giggling and talking. And then he says like, you know, if I were to kiss you now, it would be weird and you'd probably hit me. But if we were an old couple and I leaned over and kissed you, it wouldn't be weird. It would just be normal. And I wish that we were an old couple. And that is a line. And we've talked about this a lot, but about sincerity and about like crossing that line into corniness. That's a line that I'm sure someone's going to be like, oh, that's kind of corny, but it's just so real and it's so heartfelt and it's so coming from it's coming from the heart. And I found that line to be so beautiful and so sweet. And it does give you, it's still a bittersweet ending, but it gives you like a little bit of something just to grab a hold of before you end. It doesn't leave you at the airport desk. You know, it leaves you here in a lovely memory that's very sunshine colored, you know?
And if anything, that's how Grover remembers the relationship, and that's how they remember it in general. And it's not like something as simple as like him going to Prague and kissing her to end the movie is just as sweet, if not less sweet than when they're just having like a good memory. Like that's the beauty of filmmaking. Like in our own minds, we can never like go back to these moments. But in film we can,
Yes.
as in like, even though it's not real, but like it's real for Grover, it's real for Jane, it's real for the universe that it's in. And it's like ending on this
canon.
note. It's canon, exactly. It's ending on this note from Grover's memory, not necessarily where he is in life at that point. And it's beautiful. It's a really great ending. And
Very
Baumbach,
sweet.
yeah. I mean, I think Baumbach does simplistic endings like the best out of anyone. Like, I think the ending to Marriage Story is genuine. Like, the last two scenes of Marriage Story are like
Haven't seen it.
incredible.
But
I know,
you will.
well, just wait. You will. You will soon.
Unless I get hit by a bus before then. You don't know.
Well, then maybe you could just watch it right now.
No.
It's not going to be the next movie, but we're not done. We're not done here.
No, it's not. It's not. No, we're not even close to being done.
We're not even close to done. Okay, so that is, like I said, the last 40 minutes or so, last 30 minutes, last 15 minutes especially, of this movie are just perfect to me, and take what is a fun, fresh out of college movie with hijinks and silly stuff, and it turns it into something that really just rocks me to my core because it's so bittersweet and lovely. I do want to talk about all the silly stuff as well, because there is so much fun, silly stuff, and there just something that just jumps out to me. Otis just gets on the floor and starts like doing this weird. He puts his feet to the couch and then he puts his head to the television set, and then Max is like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "I'm measuring the distance from the couch to the television because Chet said it might be a couple inches too close." There's just weird moments like that are so human and so strange. And I'm sure that Noah Baumbach thought of that and he was like, no one is going to relate to this. But I think everyone is just as weird as Noah Baumbach is. There's stuff like that. There's when they think that the Cookie Man's outside and they jump down on the floor and they're like, "Go away, Cookie Man. Go away."
Yeah. Well, also, wait. Also, it's really funny because one of them's knocking on the door. And then he opens it up and then he sees them on the floor and then he gets on the floor. But it's like, you were the one who was knocking. Like, you're in the front door already. Which, yeah, that scene's very sweet.
A couple more that I'll just go through and then I'll throw it back to you guys to throw out some scenes. But when they're at the bar and Otis orders the beer and there's a piece of food in it, and Grover's like, "Send it back." And he's like, no, I can't do that because I want her to like me. I don't want to cause a fuss. She seems really busy. And then he drinks it, spits it back out. It's like that. If ever there was a moment where I saw myself on screen, that was it. I would never send food back in my life. And so I really identify with that moment.
Even if you order the chicken and they give you like salami.
Yeah, even if they gave me salami, I'd be like, "Oh, I'm so happy I got salami. This is better for me, actually."
I didn't know I wanted salami, but now I do.
Yeah, exactly. So there's just like weird little moments throughout this movie that, well, frankly, it keeps the movie from ever getting boring, in my opinion. I don't think that there's like a real boring stretch of the movie. I do think that I think the character of Skippy and his sort of subplot is the least interesting, but I don't think that the movie ever, goes too far into it, so it never reaches boring territory. But always funny little things. Take me through a few of your funny little skits.
I like when the dude takes their parking spot and then he's in the car and he's like, "No, don't do this. He'd rather be bow hunting." He already said he'd rather be bow hunting. That made me chuckle.
Yeah, I kind of alluded to it already or kind of talked about it, but the hookup scene with Grover and that freshman is just really funny. Because again, it's just like, he's like, "No, I think I'm just going to spend the night." And then they start laughing and then they just start like making out. I'm like, yeah, that's very relatable and just very silly.
Great line in there too. She says, "Come on, be romantically self-destructive with me." Just like a very clever line,
There's like there's just a funny offhanded line about there being like an 80s party, which like it was just funny to me because it's like the 90s.
That's a great point.
That's like having like an early 2000s party for like our generation.
You guys ready for this 2004 party?
Yeah, or like a 2010s party, I guess now, which is like, oh, that's weird.
We're all wearing like the Kanye glasses, that have the shades in them, and listening to
the Black Eyed Peas.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh my god, I had another one, but I lost it. But I'll get it back.
Well,
I like when they're at the bar too, and they're talking about Like how your own name starts to sound weird, and then Chet's just there behind the bar, and then he's just like, Chet.
I love that too, because it's clearly like they filmed Eric Stoltz way later.
Right.
I do love Chet. I think Chet's really, and I think this is true of the movie. There is a sort of a faux intellectualism that I think Baumbach is aware of as he's writing it. So the movie itself is not faux intellectual, but the characters all are. And Chet is especially one of those. He says twice, not once, but twice throughout the movie. Now, I'm paraphrasing myself when I say this. I'm paraphrasing myself is so pretentious and so obnoxious.
Yeah. Also, I just thought it was funny. The bouncer, I was like, who the fuck is that guy? The bouncer at the bar. He played the dad on Wizards of Waverly Place.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah, right?
You're right.
I was like, why does that guy look so fucking familiar? And then it hit me. Also, is his name Fred? Who's a foreign exchange student or the?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Like Frederick or whatever?
Frederick. Yeah, I thought he was hella funny throughout the whole thing, and was also like, I love that little bit with, I think it's Skippy, right? Where like, he's like moving his girlfriend into like a apartment, and like Frederick just comes out and is like flirting with her before. And then he's like, oh, you're still here? And he's like, yeah, I'm actually going to live here. I think I'll be around for a little while longer. And that concept is just really funny to me, because again, that is totally relatable. Like, there are so many people that go to college, and just the idea of like feeling that you need to stay to protect the person you're dating at the time is just really funny. And then there's a few other good scenes with him, like where he's having sex, and then like they open the door and they're like, are you going to close the door, or like
open or close?
Open or close, like choose one.
Everything about that is just really funny. Also, someone refers to him as Euro trash during the movie, and I love that so much. Also, when he's in the club, when they all go out to the club, there's one small moment where he's dancing with a woman and he puts his oversized coat around her. And it's so creepy. But really
90s
funny.
were a different time, man.
You could wear trench coats back then.
Yeah.
The costumes are
You
wild.
can't wear trench coats anymore.
You can't wear trench coats to the club anymore. And you certainly can't put them on people. America's different.
Also, right before that scene, too, when they're at the club, or I guess in the middle of that, Grover, he forgot his ID at home. And so he goes back outside and he's talking to a girl. She's talking about her fake ID. And then she's like, do you have a fake ID? And he's like, no, I have a real ID. And she's like, oh, you're 21? And he goes, 22. And she's like, whoa. Like, you're so old.
Yeah, that seems really good too, yeah.
I think the whole movie is just like chock full of these moments, right? Like every single scene has one line that I will quote for the rest of my life. Also, just thinking of silly scenes, Noah Baumbach does appear in the movie twice. He appears in the scene that we just talked about when the Eurotrash comes up and is flirting with Miami when Skippy's moving her stuff back in. He plays one of the two guys that's just sitting on the stoop talking about like would you rather
cow fucking.
Yeah,
it's just such a juvenile sense of humor. I like that he put himself in that role too. It's like having a self-awareness about it.
Yeah, totally.
Real quick, let's talk about some of the bad stuff in this movie, and then we'll come back to some good stuff before we finish. But already mentioned it. The Chris Eichman character, Max, starts dating a 16-year-old at the time of their first date, about to be 17-year-old. Not a good look, not a good move.
Not good.
Don't do it. Don't do that. If you don't date minors
Thanks. Yeah, cool.
That's my sage
That's a hot
advice.
take.
Yeah. No, but yeah, that does lead to a really good joke though, where she says, "I'm going to be 17 tomorrow," and he's like, 17. So I guess now you can read 17 magazine and get all the references. Just a good joke.
Just a dad joke.
Just a really good joke. So that obviously not a great look for the movie. I think that the movie is aware that it's not a good thing, but they end up like still dating later. So
yeah, they're fine
the
with it.
movie doesn't come down on it. So that's weird. There's that. And then I thought that the female nudity was a bit excessive, like in the scene that we talked about where Grover is just on the bed and then the woman that he's about to sleep with just takes off her shirt.
Yeah.
And the way it's lit too, it feels very like spotlighty on her.
Yeah.
And I just don't like, I'm not in favor of nudity generally in most movies, unless it is really servicing the plot.
It doesn't add anything here.
No, instead it just
Yeah.
it did feel sort of like older 80s, 90s comedies where they would add boobs to get teenagers to come see the movie. So yeah, I didn't love that either. Is there anything else that you guys
It's really white.
That's a great point. Yeah, we almost forgot about that.
Extremely white. There's no pigmentation at all in this movie. It's just white people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, we've talked about this in Francis Ha. We'll continue to talk about it every single Baumbach. But it is
Until he changes it.
until he changes it.
Which he won't. He
Recall.
won't, like, to be honest.
But this was 1995. No one cared about diversity back in 1995.
No one in the Hollywood system.
no one of color existed back then for Hollywood.
How were us white people supposed to know there were other races out there?
To be fair, I literally didn't exist in 1995.
There were no
Is that true?
Filipinos in 1995.
The Philippines, of course,
Check the records.
famously, the Philippines became a place in 1996.
Yeah. I will say this, though. When we get to Marriage Story in 2019, it's more of the same as it was
Well, that's
here.
disappointing.
And it's really, I will say it's a very interesting thing, though, because, like, again, this is his first movie, and that's fine, but we also watched Francis Ha, and that movie's literally doesn't have color in it.
Yeah.
No.
Literally.
Yeah.
It's in black
two
and white,
ways,
but
yeah.
mostly white.
But mostly white. And yeah, I don't know. I think we'll revisit. Before our power rankings, we should have the white-o-meter or something stupid like that.
The white-o-meter is real white on this one. Even the background,
very white.
Even the background actors, like I don't know if I spotted anyone of color. So definitely something he's got to get checked on.
But you know what we got to check on?
What's that, Tyler?
The power ranking.
Noah Baumbach.
Is there anything else?
Noah Baumbach.
White.
All right, so for the Noah Baumbach
Greta
rankings, thank you. Well, this is week 2 of the Noah Baumbach series. We had watched Francis Ha. We watched Francis Ha last time. We watched Kicking and Screaming this time. So we have 2 movies. Tyler, I'm going to go ahead and start with you. Where does Kicking and Screaming rank in the Noah Baumbach power rankings for you?
Yeah, this is actually a tough one, honestly, because I feel very similarly about both movies. I really do appreciate both of them a lot, but simply because I think one is made far better as a film.
You should be very careful about what you say next.
I'm gonna
You're gonna get flamed in the comments.
I'm gonna put Kicking and Screaming at my bottom right now, number 2.
Okay.
And then I'm going to keep Francis Ha at number 1, simply because I think Greta Gerwig's Francis is a lot more likable than Grover throughout the entire film. And I think the film itself is like put together slightly. But honestly, I think I like have the same rating for them, which is a really good movie and really solid and a lot of fun. But yeah, that's it. I don't know. It's a very simple one. It's an easy choice for me.
Well, it was not an easy choice for me. I labored about this idea for seconds on end. All right. And at number 2, I'm going to put Francis Ha. And at number 1, I'm putting Kicking and Screaming.
Incredible.
Simply because I enjoyed it more. And if you want to fight me, you can find me on Twitter. I'll be there all day.
Please follow it and at me.
Please follow me. I only have 39 followers right now.
I think this is interesting because now watching this a second time, I do think I'll return to this fairly often. It used to be on Netflix, and then they just took it off like a month ago,
I know,
which is
I had
annoying.
to pay $3.99 to rent this.
So annoying. So
Same.
annoying. But hopefully when it comes
That's
back.
also why I put Francis Ha higher.
But hopefully when it comes back. I do think I'll revisit this a lot just because there's just so many scenes. There's just so many little moments that are funny and I want to rewatch and really nice little performance moments. Anyway, at number 2 is Kicking and Screaming, and at number 1 is Francis Ha. I'm going to be honest here. Francis Ha is going to be tough to dethrone. It is one of my favorite movies of all time. It's going to be tough to
Also,
dethrone.
such a better poster.
Better poster. That's okay. So we're coming out of the rankings now. The music's over. Blah blah blah. Couple of just like stray thoughts that I had. One is the poster, Tyler. The poster. There are two posters, but the main poster that you'll see most often has Eric Stoltz in the center of it, which makes no sense. It's just because like he was the biggest star. It's like him, Olivia Dabo, and I think Parker Posey, who plays Miami, because those were the biggest stars. And it's like they were just unabashedly and without any shame just trying to get this movie sold, So they just put Eric Stoltz on the cover. The other stray thought I had is about Josh Hamilton and Olivia Dabo. I think they're both really great in this movie, and I didn't emphasize that enough at the beginning. I think Josh Hamilton really elevates the character of Grover, because I think on the page, Grover could be played really, really sourly and really just in a way that you don't like him at all. But he finds moments within the dialogue and within the performance where you can see that he's not just an asshole. He's scorned by the relationship that meant so much to him and how that ended. And again, as the movie goes along, you start to understand Grover a little bit more. But overall, just Josh Hamilton's really good. And then Olivia Dabo, I love her retainer. I love that small detail.
Yeah.
She just is like constantly fidgeting with it, taking it out. The way that she smiles is also impacted by it, because like she tries to cover up her upper teeth when she like laughs, And it's just a very cute little quirk that for a character that I really admire. And I think she's really good in the movie. So I just wanted to emphasize how much I like those two performances specifically, because we were talking mostly character as opposed to performances.
Yeah, right.
Any final thoughts for you, gents?
I think you're both wrong with your power rankings. And I think history will remember you.
History will be on your side.
History's going to be on my side, I think. I think the fans will agree. The folks at home who are watching are going to be on my side here.
I love it. Tyler, any final thoughts?
Okay, I just have to say, in my kicking and screaming rankings, I'm going to put kicking and screaming at number 2 and then kicking and screaming at number 1. Which one is which? You'll never know.
I'll never tell. Okay, awesome. I thought this was fun. It's a really good movie. I highly recommend everyone check it out. It was on Netflix. I'm sure it'll go back on Netflix soon. Right now, you have to buy it. It's $3 or $3.99, whatever it was, on Amazon or any other service that you could buy, iTunes, whatever. But definitely check it out.
On iTunes still.
I don't know.
I digress.
I digress too. Definitely check this movie out. I think we all definitely recommend it. It's a really nice movie, especially I think you should watch it if you are either in college or just about to leave college, because I do think you'll see yourself reflected in it. Absolutely. But so yeah, the next film, we're going to do something a little bit different, gents. Our next movie, we are going to watch the movie he made after this, as well as the sort of loose thread movie that he made in conjunction with it. So next week, well, not next week, but next time, we are going to watch...
We got to watch 2?
We're going to watch...
I have to watch 2?
That's right. We're going to watch Mr. Jealousy and Highball, because technically Highball is not even a Noah Baumbach movie. He put a different name under the director. So we're going to watch both of those. We're going to talk about both of those. They share the same cast. It was the same film stock that put them both together. So we're going to talk about both of those two. Spoiler alert, not the best of Noah Baumbach's, but very important.
So you're really going to make me watch 2 movies that aren't that good?
Hey, baby, that's the cost.
At least we're getting it over with.
Yes.
Oh my God.
And also, it's really weird if it has the same cast, because it's like, did Noah Baumbach think like no one would figure out that it was him?
Hey, it has a really interesting and convoluted history, and we're going to talk about it.
I'm excited.
I didn't have a ton of fun facts for this one, but I have so many fun facts for Highball.
I'm going to be sick that day.
We're going to have fun.
And that's epic.
We're going to have fun.
It's going to be a Dan and Tyler podcast.
Okay, thank you so much for listening. We hope you enjoyed yourself. We hope you check out this movie, and we hope you stick along and watch these movies with us while we go through all of Noah Baumbach's filmography. Again, as always, if you have directors that you want to see us talk about, leave a comment. We will consider it. And right now, I think we're looking for foreign directors, because that's what we're going to do after the Noah Baumbach series. And maybe not contemporary foreign filmmakers either. Maybe let's take a dive into history, huh? How about that? So if you have recommendations.
Maybe a woman filmmaker. Maybe an Agnes Varga or something.
Sure,
Who
yeah.
knows?
Are women even allowed to make...
Recall Jack Hubert
They
from the
are.
podcast.
I'm trying to get kicked off before next time.
Okay. All right. Thank you for listening. We'll see you
kidding.
next time.